Hi. So, yeah, we're Lauren and Felicity. A little bit about us. I don't know if Lisa said it all, really.
Yeah, she basically did. So we're currently reporters at the Halifax Courier, the group. So we work for the Brighouse Echo, Hebden Bridge Times and Tobin News.
Which you'll see a few things what we've been doing since we've been there a little bit later. So yeah, we were where you are now, freaking out, stressing about shorthand, worrying would we get it down, would we libel someone, would we get shouted at, would our video mess up, so we know how you're feeling.
Yeah,
yeah, so these are a few pictures from us last year. As you can see in the corner, 1 hour into Journalism Week last year, I'd broken a nail and laddered my tights, so got off to a good start. But you'll be glad to know the week did get better.
Yeah, in the middle, later on in the week, I think the highlight for me was interviewing Dan Walker. It was a bit of a last minute thing, so I didn't have much time to prepare, especially when he spent about half an hour talking about how to interview properly. It was quite nerve-wracking. But yeah, no, it was a really good week, and I remember last year we were literally all there. It looked like we were texting the whole time because we were just tweeting constantly, but it was the best week of the year. It was stressful though, really stressful.
But it does get better. And you get to meet some really, really cool people, so yeah. So we thought we'd talk a little bit about the student newsroom as well, which I'm sure you guys are involved with. We were sort of the pilot scheme for that, and what can we say really? It was a really great experience. We all got a patch each.
Yours was
Mine was East Leeds, if I remember correctly.
Mine was South Leeds, and so basically each week, I think we'd spend Monday down there, walking around the patch, getting to know people, finding out stories and building contact books. I think that was the most critical thing, having our contact book, because it was the strangest people that you meet that actually become the most useful contacts. For example, I think the best contact I had was a vet, who's literally in the middle of the town, and he used to tell me everything. So that was really handy.
And I think you learnt so much as well from sort of just having time to walk around on your patch and build up those contacts, go and speak to people, find out what's happening in the area, what issues are important to people, what people want to tell you about, and you know, whether it's sort of a village fair or something a bit more meaty, you know, it was brilliant to get out there and feel like you were sort of doing the job, even though you were sort of on a uni course. That experience was really, really sort of enriching, and definitely stood us in good stead for our jobs now, where you know you're doing that on a daily basis.
And getting to be part of the newsroom at the Yorkshire Evening Post was just incredible. Literally being in the middle of the newsroom and having journalists around you, offering you advice, offering you help and whatever you needed, and sitting there from about 8 till 6 every Friday, stressing that something would go wrong.
Usually knowing Rebecca.
Yeah.
Because, what was it, one view that was...
Oh, one view, yes.
Which would usually break, but just working in a newsroom, using their system, working to deadlines. I mean, I think Lisa remembers, I was writing a story about Kipak's brass band turning 200 years old. And I think, you came round about 4 times and I was rewriting the same sentence. Luckily, I'm not like that anymore, but it did sort of get you into the way of, you know, writing catchy intros and sort of putting the story together and, you know, because we had to get the page done by the end of the day, and it really sort of helped, you know, time management and things like that. So it was really, really useful and a really great experience. And plus, going into the supermarket and picking up a copy of the YEP and seeing your page that you produced, that you'd worked really hard to put together, seeing stories that you'd gone out to find and the contacts that you'd built up was really, really great.
It's the same pressures of a newsroom as well. You think it's going to get easier, but it doesn't. Usually you're writing more stories than we did every day, but it's just getting that experience and getting a feel for what it's actually like. And yeah, it was really helpful. And I think when we went into our interviews, showing those pages off were just critical, because we didn't have much experience in print journalism, so it was really those sheets of paper that made the huge difference, and explaining what we did and how we did it.
And as well, we took all our own photographs as well, didn't we? So you weren't just thinking about the copy, you were thinking about everything else that needed to go with it, the pictures, if there was potential for video, because now, as I'm sure you know, digital is the way forward. Video is, you know, so important to print journalism now. So I think, and I'm sure you guys know, and I'm sure you've been told, but if there's potential for video in stories and you think that, you know, it might be worth doing it, do it, because it will be worth it, and it's what people are looking for these days as well.
Yeah, every time we get sent out on a job, we're told by our editor to get video, and then he'll assess it when we get back. For example, 3 weeks ago, we had an EDL protest outside Magistrates Court in Halifax, and I was standing outside the court and we had a reporter inside, and it was, the front page was actually what happened outside rather than inside. So it's really important to get out and about, bring your phone, bring 2 phones even.
Bring 2 phones.
Yeah.
I got sent on a job, we got a report that an articulated lorry had tipped over in the middle of a field, well, in the middle of a really rural road. So off I went in heeled boots, a really, really inappropriate coat. It was chucking it down. It was a really windy, cold day in January. I had a faux-fur stole on, and I'm there checking over fields, trying to get to this lorry. It wasn't good. A word of advice, always make sure you have a raincoat and appropriate clothing. Something I've still not learned, but anyway, so got my phone out, took a few pictures, sent them, emailed them. News editor asked for some video, so got my phone out, started to video. What should happen? My phone broke. What am I going to do? So I only had one phone. It had died. Absolute nightmare. My car was running out of petrol. So it was your worst case scenario. So I thought, well, there's nothing else I can do. Went back to the office. I'm sorry, I couldn't do any video. Right, go back, use my phone. So off I went again to do the video again. And so that taught to me more than anything. Always be prepared. You know, have one phone, have another phone, make sure it's charged, have a charger, have an in-car charger, cover all your bases. Honestly, cover all your bases, because you do not want to be in that situation, because it's embarrassing going back to your newsroom and saying, I didn't get it, and they'll just say, well, go back, because you're expected to bring the goods back, and if you don't, then, you know, at the end of the day, it's the paper that's losing out, it's the web that's losing out, they're not getting those web hits that they could have got. So yeah, that's probably a good word of advice. Just talking about the student newsroom, went off on a bit of a tangent there, but these are just me going across hills and in inappropriate clothing. But these are just some of the pages we did last year. I know it's a little bit different for you guys now, but as you can see, you know, we had to put that all together, do the pictures, but it was a really nice moment seeing the first one that you'd done and knowing the work that had gone into it, and yeah, it was really good.
It was, yeah, it was the best experience ever,
yeah.
I think. And it taught you about skills that you need to be as a journalist. So you need shorthand. That's so important. Like, I can't stress how important it is to have that 100 words per minute. We currently don't have it, and we're doing shorthand exams in 2 weeks. But I would say get it before you go. News editors, they need it, they want it. You go into court, you need to write 100 words per minute, and it doesn't matter whether you have it or not, you'll be sent down there, and you're expected to come back with the copy and have it accurate, because that could be, if anything goes wrong with the report, you have to show exactly what you've written. So it's so important.
And it makes your job a lot easier as well. Longhand's fine to a degree, but it's just so much easier. You get the good quotes with shorthand as well. You know, it's essential to getting those key quotes that could really make a story from sort of like a boring, oh, it's all right, to something that's got life and vibrancy and something that people actually want to read. So I'd really recommend. It's a drag, it's awful sometimes, and you think, yeah, there's a million different ways. Oh God, is that an L? What is it? You know, you're stressing, but do it, stick with it, because it's so worth it. And as well, it's a pretty cool thing to brag about. It's like, oh yeah, I can do shorthand. You know, it's quite good. People are impressed. People like it. And so many times as well, when I don't know if it's for you, when I've been interviewing somebody and they're going, oh, you're doing shorthand. That looks good. You know. So, and it's a bit of a talking point as well when you're interviewing somebody. It breaks the ice sometimes. So I would sort of stick with it, as awful as it might seem at times, and as grueling as it is. So we've sort of covered that a little bit. But these are just some of the sort of things that we've done on the course and what we've done since. I was just going to talk a little bit about the man arrested on suspicion of murder in Elland. That was one of the stories that I did. It was my first weekend at the Halifax Courier, so this was July. Now on a weekend you're by yourself. The onus is on you to cover the stories, keep the website populated, get the web hits up. So I'd gone to bed on Friday night, feeling sort of, you know, prepared. I was getting in the headspace. It's going to be fine. I've got a lot of jobs to do, but it'll be okay. And then our news editor rings. Felicity, there's been a murder in Elland. Well, what do you do? So it was all systems go. Putting something online that night. The next day, making sure that the story was updated, if there were any updates, had the man been named, had anyone been arrested. And it was a bit of like a baptism of fire because, you know, it was my first weekend, I was by myself, and it just told me, do not panic, keep your head, and just think, you know, this is your job. This is really, it sounds awful, but this is the sort of story that you want. It's, in terms of on your first weekend, it's scary, but it was fantastic to sort of be at the centre of a story that was sort of the biggest in the area at the time. And I did panic, but then on Monday when I went in and it was over, and the web hits had been really good, and I'd managed it, I felt really good afterwards. It felt good. So if there's one word that I can, you know, if there's one word of advice I can give you, just don't panic and sort of look forward to covering those sort of stories, because when they come along, they're so worth it. And I think they really test you and push you, and it's a challenge, but it makes you realise what you can actually do, and makes you sort of realise why you're in the job, for that adrenaline and to challenge yourself. And yeah, it was really good.
We're going next one?
Yeah.
So these are a few of the stories that I've done over the past year. I think one stood out in particular, and that was the bottom one, death plunge, woman in tower block fall. So that was my first day at the Courier. I was doing freelance in May last year, and I was literally thrown into the deep end. We didn't know what had happened. I literally got sent up to Booth Town because a road was closed, police had cordoned it off, didn't know anything. Drove up, stood on the street, looked forward, there was a dead body right in the middle of the road. Not covered or anything, it literally happened about 15 minutes before. So I was a bit of a shaking mess, but I had to compose myself, and it was freezing as well, which didn't help, and try to speak to people around the area, and also remember ethical boundaries, legal, and all of that. Had to get a photograph, some video of the scene, not of the body, but that was eventually covered up with the tent. Then this was at 3:30 on a Thursday, which is our deadline day. So I had 20 minutes to get back to the office, write up the piece, and file it, get the photographs in and everything. Managed to do it with 2 minutes to spare on deadline day, and managed to get the front page, which was just incredible. But it taught me so many lessons, and I think it's better to get thrown into the deep end, because then you know what to expect later on. You definitely, you need the experience. You can't, I don't think if I wouldn't have done that on that day, that I probably would have been more nervous to attend something like that later on. So it's definitely a good lesson to learn.
I was just gonna, I don't want to keep boring you with stories of, back in the day, back when we were here, but just the family of the Mall 6-year-old story. That was one I did at when I was on the course. And I don't know if you guys have had a chance to sort of door knock yet or go out and do anything like that, but I just thought I'd flag that story up, because that for me was the one story that I've done which has really sort of exemplified the importance and how useful door knocking can be. Basically, we found out that story had happened, just had a street address, no number or anything. So drove to this estate in Bermontoffs, which is in inner city Leeds. Began door knocking, and no, don't know who it is, and you're feeling a bit, oh God, am I gonna find who it is? Am I gonna get anywhere? Because there are times when you door knocking and you don't get anywhere, and it is a bit demoralising because you feel like you're just endlessly knocking on doors to try and find information that never really comes. But for that, I struck gold and managed to find out where this family lived. Went down, got a really good interview with the family, took some pictures of the girl, her injuries. So for me, I'd just say, that exemplified how important door knocking is and what an important tool it is in journalism. If you can get a chance to do it, and if you can do it, then, go for it, because when it does actually come off and works, it's a really, really great feeling. Do you want to talk any more of this one? So we thought we'd show you a few of our favourite sort of things.
From last year, from this year, so it's a bit of a mix. You go, because that's yours.
So heat wave of crime, as temperatures soar, tempers flare in Calderdale, road rage, street brawl, gang attack, threats. Everything went off that week. Yeah, I thought I'd just show you this one because the side panel was the murder that I covered on my first weekend. So that was quite nice to see it. I went out, door knocked, again, people who lived on the street where the man had been murdered, spoke to them, got some comments from them, a bit of a tribute to, obviously what he was like as a person. But yeah, I do like that because it's a striking front page, and it really did all go off that week. There was all sorts going on. Yeah, but it's not all doom and gloom. Sometimes you can be doing really nice stories, nice human interest stories. This is a girl who was on The Voice. Unfortunately, she was knocked out of the battle rounds, but it was really nice to do something a bit different. Do a nice human interest story on somebody who was sort of going on a TV show. Are we going back to doom and gloom again after this?
I think it's...
Oh, yes we are, sorry.
Yeah, so this was my weekend. I was working, it was a Sunday, and rang Detective Inspector in the morning, nothing, and then rang the CID, and they told me about this 89-year-old that had been attacked. And I remember thinking, it really hit home, because if that was one of my family members, it would just be horrific. So basically, he was walking up his drive in Halifax, and he had a Zimmer frame, so he wasn't going to attack or anything back, he wasn't going to fight back. The person came up behind him and basically knocked him to the floor, and he stole all his money. He still works. But he didn't stop there. He continued to kick this guy in the face and beat him up, and I just remember getting the appeal from police and thinking it was absolutely awful. We eventually, one of my colleagues who covers the crime reporting, he managed to get hold of the family who ended up working at the Courier, actually, and managed to get this interview and this photograph, which I think this was the most striking front page of the year. It was just, if you saw it, there's no words for it, and that's why we didn't have the copy on the front, because it literally says everything.
Yeah. I think this is why local newspapers are so important as well, because when something like that does happen and we can put that on our front page and tell people about it, that's really important. And hopefully that front page went some way to finding who did do it, and getting the message out there that that's what happened. So
sorry about the thing that's cut off. It didn't seem to do that when I was doing it last night. But you sort of get the picture anyway. It said terrific. This was after the Tour de France went through Calderdale. And so on the weekend in July, it was July, wasn't it?
Yeah.
We each went out to a different part of Calderdale. I was in Hebden Bridge.
I was in Ripondham.
And we covered the Tour de France from there, live updates every 20 minutes, and constantly on the sideline waiting for the
Peloton, yeah. We did know this.
To go by.
But no, I mean, it was a fantastic weekend and such a brilliant event to cover as a trainee journalist, because it was a real live, you know, news event. You had, you know, there was no time to sit around. You know, we weren't there to watch the Tour de France. We were there to cover it. You know, they expected stories every sort of
30 minutes
yeah,
or so, yeah.
You know, stories, interviews, pictures, video. We had to do it all. You know, there was no time to sort of be, you know, well, I suppose you do get into the spirit, but we were there to work. And I think for me, that was, I suppose it's the one event where you have been expected to sort of, it's an unfolding news event, and you did feel like you were at the centre of something that was really exciting and something that everyone was talking about. And I think that is one of the perks of journalism, because when you get that adrenaline rush and when you're part of something that the whole, you know, not just the whole, I think the whole world was sort of talking about it at that point, you know, it's so exciting to know that you've been a part of it. And, you know, when I look back on that, I think, you know, that'll be one of the things that I'm really proud that I was able to cover, and I'll always have really, really happy memories of that.
I still remember the adrenaline rush that you got when the peloton passed by, because you don't realise how quick it is until you see it in real life. And I remember sitting in the top of a house, sort of leaning out the window, trying to get this photograph of it going by, and it's so quick. But it was the best day of reporting that I've had. It was just so exciting to be part of something so big and so special.
Yeah, it was really special, and I think that that paper was a really nice one as well. We did a special Tour de France pull-out. We all did a page from our areas, and you know, it's something that you can keep. I mean, you keep all your stories, the ones you're proud of, but I think that one, like I say, will be one that I'll keep for a long time and always look back on, you know, with a lot of fondness.
Next one.
Oh yeah.
It's cut off again. So this, I talked about this earlier. This is about 3 weeks ago outside Coldsdale Magistrates Court. And as you can see, there was quite a bit of commotion as the EDL came to visit. 25 men in court charged with sexual offences against girls under 16. So I was sent to cover outside of court, as I said earlier, and it really kicked off. I was there from about 9 o'clock. Nothing was really happening. There was a bit of a media scrum, nothing really happening. And at about 11 o'clock, about 20 more EDL supporters arrived and literally stood in a line outside the court and started marching towards the police officers who were standing outside when the defendants came out. And at that point, it was quite scary, because it was quite violent, and it was very abusive, but I had to be a part of that, so I had to get in there with my camera. Again, you need 2 phones, because my phone ran out of battery the first time, so I had to get my work phone out and get this video. I was in the office till about 8:30, sorting out this video to put online, but again, you need to know your law, because we were going through it and we were like, we can't put that in, because that could be a defendant, we can't do that. And it wasn't the fact that we can't identify the defendants, it was the fact that if they're not defendants, then that brings a really big problem. But no, it's definitely a standout story I worked on, and it was exciting. Bit of an adrenaline rush from that. It was chasing the EDL down into Halifax town centre. It
was exciting in the office as well, because like copies being fed back, and you could really feel the buzz in the newsroom. And I mean, it's not a particularly nice story, but the buzz you get from covering something that's so big is really, really great.
Yeah, I remember ringing our news editor, Chris Lever, and him saying, "Lauren, reporting from the scene, what can you tell us?" So I was in a bit of a buzz at that time, and I probably spoke a little bit too quickly, but you just have to literally say exactly what's happened. Like after the man was arrested, got on the phone straight away and got that through. The next one, this is for the Todmorden News, this is a while ago. So a car from the above hill, the handbrake wasn't on, smashed into the back of the house. There was an old pensioner asleep upstairs. I was sent down the following morning to find out exactly what happened, to try and get an interview with the family. Nobody was there. I waited for about 2 hours, and just as I was about to leave, somebody turned up. Managed to go in and speak to the family. Obviously, you have to address it very sensitively, because the the wife started crying in front of me. So it's one of those things that you just have to be there for them, but you also have to get them to trust you. It's really important to get that trust. But managed to get the story, and yeah, it was good. Importance of door knocks.
Yeah.
Oh my God, what's it done?
Right. It's gone a bit funny, but you get the essence. Basically, we thought we'd ask people who we work with what the best thing about being a journalist is, and these are just some of the comments. You know, journalism is the best career in the world. It totally is. You would not get the adrenaline rush of covering a fantastic story anywhere else. Feeling like a part of something that's really important, and as well, I think you get access and you meet access to people and meet people who you wouldn't usually meet in other jobs, everyday life, which is really, I mean, Lauren, you met the Fonz, didn't you?
Yeah.
You know,
which is
where
brilliant.
else would you know, politicians, you know, if sort of politicians come into Halifax, or a famous person or something like that, and you do sort of get access to areas which you wouldn't usually, even going in sort of like town halls and like the mayor's office and things like that, just sort of places where you wouldn't usually get to see. And you know, it's like Chris says as well, one minute you might be covering a church fundraiser, but the next, you know, you could be going out to do a front page lead on a multi-vehicle accident that's killed people. So there is that variation. You don't know what you're going to be doing from one day to the next. You don't even know what you're going to be doing that day. You could be just writing a story, you know, about a village fair, and then something breaks in the afternoon and it's all systems go. It's on deadline day. Everyone's got to pull together, and that's what's really, really good.
It can change so
quickly. Yeah.
But it's exciting. You want those moments.
Yeah.
The next quote is from Tom Scargill. He actually went here as a former student. He now is the FC Halifax town reporter, so it's something he loves. But he said that he would advise journalists to follow their passion. It takes a while to get there, but if you're passionate about news, sport, music or fashion, just write about it. He advised to like go out, get free, volunteer for any paper that you can, and get that experience that you need to be diverse against other candidates.
And then John Greenwood, the news editor of the Tomodden News and Hebden Bridge Times, basically echoing what Tom says, write about what you love, and because that can really sort of, like he says, enrich your career, and you will get chances to do that. You'll get chances to write about things you like, and if you're not getting the chance to do it, bring ideas in. You know, think of ideas, talk about things that you'd like to cover. Is there a national story that you could put a local spin on? You know, we've done quite a few things like that. 50 Shades of Grey Mania a couple of weeks back. You know, we sort of thought, what are people doing in Halifax? Have loads of people bought tickets to see it? Have people pre-booked to go and see it? Are cinemas putting extra showings on? And it turns out that they were. So just stuff like that can always be a really good source of stories. Always listen to the news in the morning. You know, has a survey come out, has a study come out? Is there something that you could put a local angle on it? And sometimes find that they make really sort of interesting stories, because people are interested in the national story, but they want to know how it's going to affect them on a local level as well. So I think it's always good to have that sort of, you know, in your mind, and think about how you can sort of localise it.
One final thing before we get to questions, I would say get all your exams, and they're so important. They're literally, you can't go into a newsroom without them. That's what the editor and news editor look for. You need to know law, you need your public affairs. I know public affairs for us was one of the worst classes.
Sorry, Nigel.
you made it interesting.
You made it interesting though, you did.
But studying it and reading the book was just...
You need it though, you need public affairs. You might think that you don't, but especially on a local paper where you're covering council meetings, you need to know what the difference between a councillor and MP is, and you know, what the structure of local government and how it affects people, and what council tax is, what, you know, council tax precepts are. You need to know those, because you're going to be doing stories about them, and you need to have that knowledge, because, you know, it's those little things, it's those things that you have in your mind that will make you a good reporter and an accurate reporter. And
law's crucial. You
go to court,
and they'll say something. The judge will turn around and say Section 39 order in place. You have to know what that is. They're not going to stop and explain it to you. You have to know that. And if you make a huge mistake because you didn't know what that was, then that's your own fault, and you're going to get in big trouble for that. So you need to know all that stuff, and it does get a bit dull at times, but it's worth it, because once you have it, then you have it for life.
Yeah. We're also gonna say sort of what you need as a reporter. We've sort of covered that though, haven't we?
Yeah.
Just to really hammer home the point. 2 phones. You'll probably get a work phone if you end up working on a newspaper. Charge your phones. Have loads of proper shoes.
You don't want to be walking down a cobbled road, well, running down a cobbled road to a fire in heels, but that's a lesson that you learn.
You don't want to be trekking across a muddy field either in your best boots. No.
A raincoat.
Definitely a raincoat.
Always
umbrella.
need your shorthand book.
Yeah.
And 2 pens.
Loads
the
of
first
pens.
One will
loads
run
of
out.
pens. Yeah. So I think that sort of concludes our presentation, but if anyone's got any questions, we'd be more than happy to sort of answer them.
I remember reading the blockade paper a few weeks back, and I was just wondering about, well, the police released a statement the day before the men appeared in court, saying that they were trying to calm tensions within the town. So is that something you took into consideration before publishing the story?
We didn't actually publish that appeal. We got sent it, and we made a decision not to do anything on it because we thought that could increase the tension. But it definitely made us aware that it could be a really escalating situation. So the day before we had a plan of action, 2 reporters down there, and that's how we covered it. Anyone else?
Do you think that postgraduate journalism students are more driven to succeed in the industry than regular undergraduates?
Ooh. I think that as long as you've got the passion, determination, enthusiasm, and you want to do it, you're interested in news, you're passionate about news. If you're not passionate about news, then don't bother going into journalism. You've got to, it sounds awful, you've got to live and breathe it. You know, if you're looking for a 9-to-5 job, then I'd say you're in the wrong place. Because essentially it is a 24-hour job in some ways. If you're driving home from work and you think, oh, my day's over, it's fine, you know, I'll go home, watch some television. Oh, but you see a police car, what's going on? Oh, there's an ambulance, what's happening? There's a car that's smashed up on the side of the road. You need to be able to whip your phone out, take a picture, send some words through. So essentially, I think that if you've got the passion, determination, enthusiasm, then you will succeed. I don't think it's a matter of whether you're an undergraduate or a postgraduate. But I mean,
I think as undergrads that you should take advantage of the opportunity to do NCTJ exams, because we do know journalists that we have friends that are currently working in local newspapers that were undergraduates. They didn't do the postgrad course, but they did their exams. They worked hard to get it, and they're doing really well. David, he's
I mean, I think as long as you get those NCTJs, then you set up, because that is what newspapers look for. I'm not even sure you would. I don't think you'd get an interview without them if you don't have them, because they are so essential. They are sort of the industry standard, and that's why newspapers want them. They know that if you've got your NCTJs, if you've got those exams, you've passed them, then you know you've got a good standing to work on a newspaper and do it well. Hello.
It is a really competitive industry, and we all know that it's difficult now to get a job in newspapers. What do you think you two did that meant that you were offered? I mean, Felicity, you were offered 2 jobs before you left school. And Lauren, obviously, you were hired really early into the course. What do you think that you did to stand out?
I think it's about having that experience. Newsroom of the not Newsroom of the Future, the student newsroom really helped us. It's about having a really stand-out portfolio and going into an interview and knowing what you're going to say. Studied up the newspaper, read it before you go in.
Go in with stories as well, suggest story ideas, and then, you know, because news editors love that. They want you to take your own stories and they want you to have ideas. They're not going to shoot you down, you know, they like that, they encourage that. So always be thinking, you know, what can I be bringing in? Like I said before, is there a national issue that we could put a local spin on?
Always have 3 story ideas when you go in.
Yeah, in terms of interviews as well, I think and we learnt this from Lisa, make sure your portfolio is beautiful. Make sure that that you can present it, that you can flip through it, that everything's laid out in a nice way, because it just shows that you've put that extra effort in, and it shows that you really want the job. If you just go in and you've got a folder and you just sort of not really bothered, then I don't really think that reflects well on you as a candidate for the role. But if you've got a really good portfolio, I think that's sort of instantly.
It took us hours.
It does take hours.
Sticking
yeah,
everything down,
but
cutting
it's
it
worth it.
perfect. And always go in with like a newspaper under your arm or something, and make sure it's their newspapers. Then and talk about some of the stories that they did last week or something. Like flick to page 3 and say, oh, I like that story because such and such. I'd really like to cover something like this, or I have covered something like this. Give examples.
I think as well, while you're on the course, don't be afraid of putting yourself out there and doing things and volunteering for the harder jobs as well. I mean, the story that I mentioned before about the little girl who was mauled by a dog, door knocking can be a bit daunting at first. It can be scary, essentially you're just knocking on people's doors and who you don't know and asking them to tell you things, and it can be a little bit sort of nerve-wracking at first, but do it, get that experience, put yourself out there for the harder jobs, for the ones where you might think, oh, it's a bit nerve-wracking. Do it, because it's great experience, and when you can go into your interview and say, I've done this, I've done that, I've done door knocks, and then I got an interview afterwards, I've covered a murder and things like that. It all comes together and it presents you as sort of the ideal candidate for the job, really, and shows what you can do.
Be prepared for questions about door knocks as well.
Yeah.
Because you will get asked what would be your reaction if your news editor sent you down on a door knock, and you have to come back quickly with an answer. Or they could, I remember with my interview for here, Lisa suggested a 2-year-old kid had been killed in a car accident, or was hit by a car, sorry. And I had to give her exactly what I would do, and I remember I was shaking at the time and it was over Skype, so she couldn't see, but just be prepared is what I'd say. Really prepared.
Yeah, and I think like I said, I just can't reiterate enough, just put yourself out there and just get as much experience as you can. I mean, I don't know if you guys are doing sort of, I mean, sure you will, you cover, it's a newsroom, you cover, real news in real time. If there is a story that, like I said, that's a bit nerve-wracking or something that's a bit sort of hard to do it and put yourself out there and just do it, because the experience that you'll get from it will be invaluable. Any other questions? Oh, right, she goes, yeah.
Would you recommend to do the placement in the same newspaper at the end of the year, or is it better to vary the sort of experience and do one week in
I mean, we never, because we sort of got jobs, we sort of went straight into the workplace. But I'd say it's probably quite good to get a varied experience of different newsrooms, because I think every newsroom has its own quirks, can be different, and I think if you go to a few of them, you get a really good rounded experience, and plus you build up cuttings for your portfolio as well from different newspapers, which is always a bonus. So yeah, if you've got the opportunity to go to a few, then I'd say do it. Oh, yeah.
Before you started the course, considering print in decline, why did you decide to do print journalism?
I always wanted to do print journalism, and I think there is still a future for it. We currently work about 50% on the web, 50% in print. But the paper always comes first, and it's still that thrill of picking up a paper and seeing your byline, and I think that sort of drew me to do it.
I think that there is. I think that there is a future in print journalism. It's just how the industry sort of adapts to sort of the changing climate that we're in at the moment. I mean, for me personally, I've always enjoyed writing. I love it. I've loved it from a really young age, and for me it just seemed like the best outlet for me. But what I will say is that you do need to be prepared to work across all platforms. We don't just class ourselves as print journalists. I mean, that is sort of our main thing, but you need to be able to take pictures, you need to be able to do a video for web, you need to be able to use social media, you need to do everything really. So never just sort of pigeonhole yourself into one sort of area, because if you've got the opportunity to widen your skills and do more things, then do it, because ultimately it will stand you in good stead.
A lot of local and regional titles are now edited, not in the town way that they come back from, so they're sort of
Yeah.
grouped together. I think the Halifax Courier is one of, is that edited in Leeds?
No, we're still in Halifax.
Still in
Yeah,
Halifax.
we are.
Alright, okay, well that kind of I thought it was Leeds. I would have thought that would be a lot of travelling, but yeah.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
How did you balance your university life and have such a fast-paced job?
I think with joining the Courier, I joined in May freelance, and so I spent a lot of time there and not so much time here. But it's the importance of like having an understanding editor who lets you do that revision outside of the course, outside of work. But it's also making that time. You finish work at around 5 or 6, depending what happens that day, and you need to go home and you need to sit down and revise. It's horrible. You're so tired, you don't want to go home and you don't want to open a law book or a public affairs book, but you just have to have that motivation to know that once you do that exam, that day it's out of the way.
I think,
yeah,
I think my view is as well, if you want something enough, then you'll make time for it. And I think that we'd sort of finished all our exams, hadn't we, by June anyway. So by that point, it was okay. We were sort of doing 2 days in uni and the rest, 2 days at work and 3 days at uni, and then once we finished our exams we went full time into work. I mean, it was quite difficult at first, but like I said, I think that if you want something enough and you've got the passion and determination, then you will get there and you will do it and you will make time for it, and nothing will get in your way, because because that's what you really want. So any other questions? No. Oh.
Similar purpose to yours, I've undergone a lot of restructuring, and so reporters have left and then put on more of a workload for the other reporters. Have you found that in your experience there, or?
We went in after a restructure.
Yeah.
So when we joined the Halifax Courier, that's the only way we knew it. And I think if you work together as a team, then it's always going to be all right.
Teamwork's really important, and I think that if you've got a good team and everyone sort of works together, then it's fine. Cool. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'd have to say something really nice now, which these guys will be shocked at, because they've been calling you Medusa all week. You two are absolute amazing ambassadors for our courses. I mean, they were terrified and shaking this time last year, sat on the front, and Lauren talking about that tower block plunge, you called me going, I can't do it, I don't know what to do, I'm scared. And you were absolutely brilliant, and you've just stood up here and spoke so beautifully and so eloquently, and you're so accomplished. I'm sure I speak for all the tutors here when we say how proud we are of you, so I'd like to give them a massive round of applause.